What's up, guys? Today we're going to be going over this most previous TWAB, which was one of the biggest ones in a very long time, that went over all kinds of changes coming up in the 30th anniversary pack, most of which were PvP changes, but there were a few mixed in that will drastically impact PvE. So if you're someone that plays mostly PvP only, I definitely recommend reading all this if you haven't yet. But if you're a PvE player like most people here, in this video I'll be picking out the few things in here that'll be changing the way we play the most. And real quick, my second gimme page is up going over Destiny 2 Festival of the Lost. Yes, this is just a little bit late. Some unfortunate things came up that delayed this coming out. But as you see, the three main categories were the activities, the weapons, and the cosmetics. So if you want to check that out, you can see my review on those different categories and different topics within those categories. And yes, a lot of this stuff isn't relevant anymore, but I did make a quick review on all three of the Festival of Lost weapons. So if you have a bunch of these in your vault, you can see which ones I would be keeping. So if you want to check this out, go ahead and click the link in the description and go ahead and follow. That way you see all of my different reviews. Some of them will be Destiny based, some will be other games. And a cool thing about this page is you can ask me questions. I'll reply to as many as I can. So definitely go ahead and check that out. So the first big change that'll be impacting PvE is the way they're changing ability cooldown uptimes. Right now in the game, almost every single light ability is on the exact same cooldown. So for example, every grenade in the game is the exact same cooldown, every melee, every class ability, and every super is the exact same cooldown. But starting with the 30th anniversary pack, individual grenades will have different cooldowns, which will help them balance them for how strong they are and be able to make some weaker but way lower cooldowns than some stronger with a lot longer cooldowns. Also, it's not very clear if they're going to be doing this to every single ability right off the bat, but I imagine as the subclass changes come out throughout the next year, I'm sure that'll be when most of these changes will be happening. But I do list two as example, one for a Flux Grenade, then another for a Firebolt, and the Firebolt one is pretty interesting. They're making it come back a lot quicker and increasing its damage versus PvE combatants by 15%, which is pretty nice. So overall, this change will make it so you just don't automatically pick the best grenade. After this update, the best grenade might have an extremely long cooldown, so the little bit weaker grenades in PvE might be a lot more usable now because of this change. Another interesting thing about this change is a lot of the perks and mods in the game that give you chunks of your abilities, for example, Demolitionist or even Firepower, the combat style mod, almost all of them are based off your cooldown time of your ability. So if you have tier 10 discipline, you'll get a higher chunk of your grenade back with a demo kill. So it'll be interesting to see how that will affect with all these different abilities. Obviously, if something like a grenade has a much higher base cooldown now, you'll get a lower chunk from those perks and mods. Overall, this change will definitely shake up what grenades are the best in PvE. Right now, it seems like there's just one on every single subclass that is just automatically the best, and this should change that. Before we move on to the second change, my G-Fuel code is 30% off through tonight. So if you're looking to try out some new flavors or stock up for the 30th anniversary pack, go ahead and click the link in the comments and description, and it'll take you over to their store. And if you're not a huge energy drink person, no problem. You can check out their hydration line, which has 0 caffeine, 0 sugar, and also 0 calories. And that is the one I drink the most often. Anyways, the second huge change is going to be to the supers in general and how they work in the game. Throughout the past 7 years of Destiny, they've always worked more or less the exact same way, where depending on your intellect stat, that will decrease the base cooldown time of the super, and every single super in the game was on the same timer. Then the other main ways were through perks and defeating targets, but they're changing this up and making it less impactful what your intellect stat is itself. So now you'll still get a decrease to your base cooldown the higher your intellect is, but now a majority of your super cooldown will be based off receiving and doing damage in both PvE and PvP. And they state that in PvE the super uptime should be relatively unchanged. But as you'll read more into this, every single super in the game will be individually tuned to how fast the base cooldown is and how much super energy you'll get from doing and receiving damage. So for example, the fastest in the game right now will be Will of Radiance, then with tier 4, Blade Barrage, Silence and Skull, and so on, all the way down to the lowest ones will be these roaming ones right here. So although they said that they think it'll be more or less the same in PvE, I think for these higher tiers like tier 5, tier 4, and tier 3, overall I think we'll be getting our supers a lot quicker in PvE, because in most activities in the game, you're going to be constantly shooting and receiving damage in PvE. For example, if you just look at something like Grandmaster Nightfalls, there's almost no downtime in GMs where you're not shooting at something at all times just because of how much health everything has. And now with a majority of your super coming from doing damage and receiving damage, I think in PvE that's just going to result in much higher uptime than it is right now in most activities. And also make it so running intellect is more or less pointless. I already thought it wasn't that important overall, but now with this change I think it's going to be even less important, and focusing on recovery, discipline, and things like that will just be even more important than they already are. The third thing that'll be changing drastically in PvE is a lot of the underused stasis abilities are getting huge buffs in this patch. So for example, the first one is stasis crystals. They've been pretty decent for some builds since they came out, but overall they're not that useful compared to some of the other stasis abilities. But now in PvE, they're still going to be freezing when they form, but now they're going to have increased radius from 1.75 meters to 2.6, so a huge increase to that freeze radius. And whenever you destroy the crystal, the detonation will be increased by 60% versus PvE combatants, which is a huge increase to their damage. And also the radius of that detonation is to be increased from 6 to 8. So overall, a bunch of huge PvE changes right there that are going to make them way more effective. So already off the bat, something like Headstone is looking really good on the Stasis Hand Cannon and also the Stasis Sidearm. I already described Headstone like Firefly for Stasis, but now with these changes, it's going to be even better. And a lot of Stasis builds are going to be extremely strong, run-in, stuff like that. And it'll be interesting to see all the cool Glacier Grenade builds I've made throughout the past year and how good they are now with these changes. Also pair it with Shatter Dive getting double damage in PvE, and Diamond Lance becoming a lot more useful on Titan, where you're going to have 3 fragment slots compared to 1 right now, and many more ways to actually spawn in the Diamond Lance itself, which should make it a lot more effective. Overall, it looks like Stasis is going to get even better with this patch. The fourth thing on this list is the increase to handheld supernova and also Nova Warp damage versus bosses and champions in PvE. Both handheld supernova and Nova Warp are getting a 30% increase to bosses and champions, along with a slight increase to the range of handheld supernova, and now it'll also push targets back when you throw it at them. So I'll definitely be making a cool build with this for things like solo lost sectors, because this season they already got a huge increase to PV damage across the board, and now with even more damage versus champions and bosses, I think that'll be a really good build. And the final thing I want to throw in on this list is the increase to shoulder charge damage in PvE. Shoulder charges are going to no longer one hit in PvP, but for PvE they're receiving all kinds of buffs. The first one being it's quicker to activate while sprinting, increasing the range of the attack itself, and also increasing the targeting by 10%. And the final one being increase the PV damage by 25%, which with Peregrine Greaves and some cool builds could result in some pretty high damage. So that could be pretty good, and it'll be something I'll be messing around with once this comes out. Another huge PV buff is the Arc Shoulder Charge will now blind enemies, which is going to be really strong and could work really well with Skull Fort. Anyways, those are my 5 things I pulled from this TWAB that I think will impact PvE the most. So definitely let me know what you think about all these different changes and how you think they'll affect PvE. And once again, my code AIR is 30% off for G Fuel through tonight. Also, if you play on Steam and you're looking to pre-order the 30th anniversary pack or even Witch Queen, you can do so on my Nexus store, which will be linked in the description. It's always the same price as Steam, but instead of a portion of the sales going to Steam themselves, it'll go to whatever creator store you use. So if you're ever looking to buy any Destiny Season or DLC, definitely take advantage of one of the Destiny creator stores on Nexus. That way you're supporting one of your favorite creators and not some large corporation. Anyways, that's gonna be it for the video. It might be my last video before December. So if you live in the US, definitely have a good Thanksgiving. And yeah, like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.